This is Susan Wilbanks with BlendedInsight.com. I am a holistic and integrative healing arts practitioner, an intuitive, and an energy healer. In this podcast, I share tips, tools, and suggestions that have helped me along my path in hopes of inspiring and helping you along yours. Let's get started with today's podcast topic. Hello, bright soul. Thank you so much for joining me on another podcast. I'm going to go right into the topic for today because last week it was a little long. So I don't want to make this podcast as long as I did last week. So I'm going to jump right in. And it's a little bit of a piggyback on last week. But I want to talk about taking radical responsibility. I feel like this is so important right now. I see so many in the collective slipping into victim mentality, and it really paralyzes a person. Because if you feel like you don't have any power, you end up doing nothing. And we are not going to create change or move through these challenges if we're sitting in victim mentality. So this is going to apply to all areas. You know, last week I talked about heartbreak. This is something different. I mean, it can be used for that too. But I wanted to just be very clear about how to take radical responsibility for every situation in your life and how to move through and create the change and the shifts that you so want and deserve. And the very first thing that one can do, and this is what I have done, is looking at what you truly value. Everyone's life and everyone's definition of success will look very unique and different to them. So for me, the very first thing I want to do is look at what I value. I value authenticity. I value honesty. I value solitude. I'm not a chaotic person. I don't want to go climb mountains every weekend. I don't want to do that. There's a lot of people here locally that they want to beat their body up, and those days are over for me. And I'm not saying I won't occasionally go on a hike, for a few miles, but I'm talking about the extremists that want to go on a 20-mile hike on the weekend, beat their body up, drink alcohol, numb out. Susan's not doing that. I value clean, conscious connection. I value taking care of myself in all ways and being around people who do the same, who take care of themselves emotionally, energetically, physically, mentally. That feeds me. Having clean, clear communication, it really, really, really fuels me. I value peace. Some people get very bored in peaceful settings. They need stimulation, like external stimulation. For me, a great conversation, intellectual conversation, feeds me to no end. It's exciting for me. I enjoy it. I am a very peaceful person. So those are the kind of things that I value. I value my time. I value connection. I want to create a life that has ease and flow in it. I want balance in my life. Everyone wants something different. So getting clear on what you value and what you want your life to truly look like. That's the first thing. The second thing is to look at any situation in your life, even if it's just taking inventory of where you are right now. What is your role in where you are right now? How did you create this? And this could be choosing someone or a situation that maybe served you for a time, but you outgrew it and you haven't made the steps or taken the actions to move through it. Whatever it is, there's no judgment, but it's actually looking at what is my role or what was my role in that situation. Sometimes just being passive is a role, and that is something that a lot of us have dealt with because we're kind-hearted and we see the good in everyone, and we're givers, and so we feel like, oh, this person is behaving that way because they're wounded, and I'll just be very passive and I'll just take it. We've all been there, right? The role is you're being too passive and you have to set a boundary. Setting boundaries isn't rude. I've done podcasts on that before. You can be very firm and still kind and taking care of yourself and letting other people know what is and what is not okay. You can do that. So that's the second part. What was your role in it, or what is your role in it? After you get clear on those two things, you can then focus on what you learned. What did you learn in the situation, or what are you learning now? It could be so many things. Like I shared before, I have learned in all situations, sometimes it's simply learning what you don't like. Sometimes you try something new and you realize you don't like it. So now that contrast will now birth something that you do like. So instead of focusing on what you don't want, once you learn what you don't want, you flip it to what you do want. And then you start putting your energy on what you do want and how can you get there. So focusing on what you learned, and the next part is taking action. What will help you move forward? And sometimes you have to sit with this a little while, because sometimes the answers aren't completely clear because it's not time. But if you sit in the energy of what you do want and what you learned, you're no longer energizing what happened, so you no longer feel victimized. And you can do this in all situations. Let's just say someone took money from you. I'm going to use this as an example because I had this happen to me before, where someone was dishonest, they were manipulative, they had no integrity, they took advantage of me, and they took a lot of money from me. And then they took off, and, just terrible, an absolute horrible act, just terrible. How did I co-create? By being too trusting, by ignoring my intuition when there were things that I should have looked into, by being too passive. So the way that I shifted that, knowing that I'm not ever going to get the money back, the way that I shifted that was saying, I am now going to decree that money that I honestly gave, with the exception of it being paid back, which it never got paid back and it won't get paid back, I'm going to now decree that was a gift, and that's going to go in my good karma bank. And I'll decree that it will come back to me in many, 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 many times, spiritually, materially, financially, in whatever way I need to balance out negative karma. And I'm just going to bless that and be on its way and cut the cord. That way I can shift my focus to the future instead of looking back. And if the person ended up coming and paying it back, that's on spirit and I will be grateful. But if I'm trying to get something from someone that they don't have, all I'm doing is looking backward and I'm energizing something in the past. I'm using that as an example. It is just something to get you thinking. If you're in that situation, don't start messaging and arguing for limitations. And I'm done. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do it, friends, because it doesn't serve you. And it's a gross energy to work in. It really is. And I know, because I've been in that energy. I've done that to myself. And my whole purpose of sharing on this podcast is to empower you to make positive changes and to get out of these yucky energies and to shift your energy once and for all. You're not going to be able to move forward if you're looking back. And the past is simply there to guide you to make better choices in the future. It's to teach you something. It's how we get smarter. It's how we get wiser. It's how we grow. And the worst thing you can do is just be a victim your whole life, or identify as a victim in some way. And I see this a lot, where people will say they're a whatever survivor, but they're so attached to that thought form of that negative behavior that it always keeps them close by. It's like they can never detach from it. And we don't want to do that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't share your story and it be an inspiration to yourself and others, because I've done that. I've shared my story. But there is a difference between making it an identity as opposed to that's something I learned and I'm on to the next thing. And now I'm going to focus on what's next. I hope that makes sense. So determining your values and focusing, really meet yourself. Determine what you want your life to look like. And then look at your role. That's taking radical responsibility for your role in all things in your life. And that can be, how did you align with it? Or what could you have done different? And this will help you to shift that in yourself so that you don't create it again. Focus on what you learned, because in all situations, we get something out of it. I was having a conversation with someone who grew up in an abusive household, and I was like, well, you learned that that's not what you want to do. I'm sorry that happened to you, but what did you learn? It's not even a but, it's and what did you learn? Because if you constantly feel like, oh my gosh, I was so victim, it's an energy too. It lowers your energy field and it makes you feel bad. Notice how it makes you feel. So it's not really serving you. So focus on what you learned and then take action to move you forward. Even if it's as simple as, I'm going to go for a walk today to move this energy out of my body. What is one thing that you can do, even if it's small, and do it on a continual basis to move you forward? And so that's really all I wanted to share. I just want us all to get better. The more of us that heal, the higher the vibration is on the entire planet. And Lord have mercy, we need that more than ever at this time. And we get to choose how we move through things. And for me, I want to move through things in the most positive way possible and to get better. I want every year to be an expansion. I don't want to live the same year every single year. I want each year to be a better version of myself. And I've done that. I've done that because I'm committed to this growth. And I would invite you to do the same. So let's go into a healing. You can uncross your arms and legs, and I will turn the healing on. I am running shields and grounding you. Okay, and so it is. Okay, friends, that is all I had for you this week. I really hope that helps. Hopefully you can take something from it, even if it's just a reminder, which it probably is because we've been on this path for a while and these things you already know. But the reminders are good because, like I said last week, repetition is the mother of skill. So I want to wish you a beautiful week. Take care. Bye-bye.